Our speakers today are M&T Gallery solo exhibiting artist, Rich Isaacman, and two artists that are in our US of Art exhibition on the second floor, Laurie Martinson and Prescott Lassman. I will have them each come up one by one. We'll go in that order, so please welcome Rich Isaacman.
Is this live? Should I even bother with it?
It is, yeah.
Doesn't matter. I'll put it on. Yep. And then when I take a step to the side and it falls to the floor, then you can say I told you so. All right. Anyway, give me just, screw it. Okay, I assume everybody can hear me. This isn't a very big room. So, thank you all for coming. Like Jillian said, I'm Rich Isaacman, and the exhibit that I'm here to talk about is Photography After Dark from around the world. And if you actually want to see it, or if you haven't seen it already, it's through those doors, and then it's on the side gallery, the M&T Gallery, which is the first door on the left. The exhibit coordinator or exhibit manager here, I'm not sure of his title, is Corey Fry, and Jillian is an outreach director. Have I got that right? So thank you both and the Delaplane for the opportunity to validate myself here. And Corey had suggested that I should begin by introducing myself. So this is me. And like it says, I've been semi-pro photographer since 2011. The semi means that if I were trying to make a living off it, I would be eating cat food. I am also a commercial drone photographer, and I have an FAA certification, and I do aerial shots for political ads and real estate agents and that kind of thing. But mainly it's just an excuse to buy drones. I am on the board of directors of the Maryland Federation of Art. And what else does it say there? I'm a past president of the Digital Photography Club of Annapolis, of which we have one or two alumni in the room. And this is my fourth solo exhibit. I do a lot of lecturing in the area about photography and astronomy. And the astronomy is the important part because I am actually enjoying a background as having been an astronomer. And in fact, there are a couple other astronomers in the room today. Those of you who are not astronomers, the 3 or 4 astronomers in the room today are probably the biggest collection of them that you've ever been with at once. But that's important. It's important. The astronomy part is important because we're talking about night photography. That's what my show is. And astronomy and night photography are very natural partners for very obvious reasons, which is that they both take place largely at night. And although astronomy, not so much anymore. And in addition, more victims, people I actually know. And in addition, it has a lot of technical aspects of capturing images and so forth and so on, and you can see the connections. And this background picture in particular kind of illustrates the connection. I took it, it must have been 10, 12 years ago, at Monument Valley in Utah, which you're probably familiar with. You may recognize the rock formations there. They show up in westerns all the time. And it's a time exposure, as you can see. It's something like 40 minutes, and you can see the star trails here. And the thing that I would like to point out to you is that if you look carefully, you see something that I've captured with a camera that's very difficult to capture with your naked eye, and that is that the stars have different colors. You can see these are quite blue, and this one's kind of whitish here. The screen color fidelity is not quite good. There's some orangey ones too that you can't really see. The point is that stars have different colors. The hot ones are blue and the cool ones are orange, and that's something that you can see immediately with a camera that you cannot see quite so easily with the naked eye. There are some stars that you can actually tell the difference. So you get an astronomy lecture along with your photography lecture here, and that's the first part of it. The other thing that's an important aspect of the pictures that I have hang there is that they've been taken from all around the world, from nearly a dozen different countries. My wife and I are very avid travelers. We've been to dozens of countries, and neither of us are big souvenir buyers, unless there's some really nice jewelry, in which case I run and hide while my wife takes over. But my principal takeaway from our travels is, like so many people's, the photos that I take. And travel and photography are, of course, very natural partners as well for a number of obvious reasons. It has a sort of a documentary function. You know, here's a picture of the Eiffel Tower. I was there. But your goal really is to try and capture some kind of sense of place. The most successful travel pictures and the ones that I really try and get successfully or not, are the ones that evoke a feeling, that not only bring the viewer to the place, but bring the place to the viewer. In other words, to instill in whoever's looking at the picture some kind of sense of ambiance. And I use this one as an example because I think it illustrates that point. It was taken in Delphi, Greece. And to me, at least, it conveys a very nice sense of age and a little bit of mystery. You have mountains shrouded in the background, and of course you have the ruins of the temple in the foreground, and this very sharp contrast between the buildings that you see so clearly and the stuff in the distance that's kind of shrouded in mystery. And so again, that's an example of how photography can create or evoke an ambiance. And that's especially important in night photography. Now, for me, night photography has two distinct appeals. One is the technical challenge, because I'm a nerd. And the other is that it captures another world because the nighttime world is fundamentally different from the daytime world. And this photo is a kind of a hybrid of those two things. It was taken in Hawaii. And as you can see, there are, it's the stars circling the North Star here in the middle as the Earth turns. It's a stack of about 100 exposures taken over a 20 or 25 minute period, and the exposures are weighted in a way so that the most recent ones appear brighter, and that's why the stars kind of look like little comets kind of zooming around. So I like that. I like this picture partly because it illustrates the kind of technical challenge that you can either set for yourself or have set to you when you're trying to take pictures when there's very little light. So let's talk about those technical challenges for a second. The obvious one is that if you're taking pictures at night, it's dark. And cameras like light a lot, and when you're shooting at night, you don't have very much of it. Or you have light, but it's not at all like daylight. When you're out in the daylight, the sky is full of light. Depending on how cloudy it is, the light might be very uniform, or you might have very bright sunlight coming from one direction. But when you're shooting at night, you have a dark sky, and you have whatever light is available to you that you have to grab for purposes of creating the look you want in your picture. So at night, we have less light. We have very localized light because you have things like street lights that you have to incorporate in your composition. And because of both of those things, you usually, though not always, need some kind of stable platform. So when I go out shooting at night, if I have the luxury of planning in advance, I'll always bring a tripod with me. I have a lightweight travel tripod that expands to, about my height and works very well. And so the technical challenges of night photography basically create an opportunity to capture scenes, to capture an ambiance that the naked eye cannot. And to me, that's a very big appeal. So, for example, this is a photo that was taken in Hawaii. That is obviously the Milky Way in the background. The skies there are dark, which makes it ideal for night photography, and of course for astronomy. There are a number of observatories there. And that tree in the foreground is an ohia tree. It is a tree that is unique to the Big Island of Hawaii. It is the first tree that takes root in freshly cooled lava after a volcanic eruption. In fact, this picture was taken at the edge of Kilauea volcano crater. It's again, about a 20-second exposure, and it's a very nice view of the Milky Way. And to me, at least, this picture evokes this very mysterious atmosphere, and of course, it's very beautiful as well. And here's one of my favorites. Now, your first reaction to this might be, this is obviously not a night photograph because there is a rainbow, and we all know that rainbows are caused by the sun. You're wrong. It is, in fact, a night photograph. It was taken at 3 o'clock in the morning. The sky was very, very dark. And I'd like you to think for a moment about rainbows. When you think about a rainbow, you think of it on a misty or rainy day where you have some sunlight, you have the sun behind you, and the rainbow always appears directly in front of you if the sun is directly behind you. Daytime rainbow is always formed by the sun acting sort of like a point light source directly behind you. But there is another big, bright, point-like light source in the sky, and it is called the moon. The moon can create a rainbow by exactly the same physics that a sun creates a rainbow. But it can only happen at night, because During the day, the sky is too bright, the sun is too bright. So if you have just the right conditions at night with some mist in front of you and something close to a full moon behind you, then you can get what is called a moonbow. And this is a moonbow at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now the interesting thing is, and one of the reasons this is my favorite, is that your eyes at night in very low light become colorblind. Those of you who aren't already colorblind, take my word for it. You have two kinds of light receptors in your retina, as you almost certainly know, rods and cones. Rods receive black and white. Rods are basically grayscale images, and cones receive color. Cones sense color images. And we have been evolved to have lots of cones near the center of our retina so that we can see the saber-toothed tigers, hiding in the bushes. But there's a disadvantage. Cones need more light than rods. And what that means is that at night, when the light is low, your color vision goes away. You may never have noticed this, but it is true. And so when you see a moonbow caused by the moon behind you and some mist in front of you, it is a rainbow, but it's very dim. And your cones no longer work. And so it's a silver rainbow. It's one of the most remarkable sights you'll ever see. It looks like a ghost of a rainbow, the silver arc across the sky. It takes a very good set of conditions. This image was very carefully planned with a photographer friend of mine. You may also be wondering what the orange cloud here is in the back. That is picking up the reflection of lava because Kilauea volcano was erupting at the time. And you can't see it, but there's a lava lake under here. And so what you're seeing here is a time exposure because the camera can pick up photons that your eyes cannot. And so the camera can see the colors that your eyes cannot. And so here you see an image that was taken of a moonbow at 3 o'clock in the morning caused by the setting moon on the edge of a erupting volcano with a fog bank in front of us. So we had to plan all that out. And this also goes to show that my life is possibly more interesting than yours. And we escaped, yes. Actually, the people we were worried about escaping, we weren't worried about the lava, we were worried about the park rangers. But yeah, we escaped. We sneaked into the park at 3 o'clock in the morning off the designated paths, and we set ourselves up on the edge of the volcano, and the lava's bubbling underneath us, and this thing appeared in front of us. We were very lucky. It lasted 5 minutes. So it's a once-in-a-lifetime shot, and it's hanging in the other room. And now you can understand why it's one of my favorites. All right, so that's the technical aspects of night photography, right? Taking time exposures, picking up things that your eyes don't have the hardware to see, but that a camera sensor does. But the other aspect, as I mentioned before, is that the nighttime world is different from the daytime world. There are different people around often, doing different things than what they do in the daytime, especially in hot climates. Everybody comes out at night. Colors look different, and the whole atmosphere, the whole ambiance is different. And this shot, I think, is a reasonably good example of that. It was taken in Hong Kong, and it was the entrance to a shopping mall that was closed because it was around 10 o'clock at night. And there were all these colorful cartoon characters kind of lining the steps to welcome you into the mall. And at night, they just looked straight up creepy, which is why I took the picture, right? And my entire family just arrived. And so that kind of illustrates the fact that one of the attractions of night photography is that it really is another world. Things feel different. They look different, they feel different. The whole emotional resonance is a lot different. And for me, that's part of the appeal. And so I wanted to show you a couple examples of that. That don't appear in the next room. This was taken in Key West, Florida at Mallory Square. Those of you who are familiar with Jimmy Buffett and Margaritaville and all that, that's where all that happens, where he sings about that. Mallory Square is the very end point of the Florida Keys, and every day at sunset, 87,000 people show up, and they all get drunk, and the ones who aren't juggling or singing or doing street performances or picking your pocket, and everybody watches the sunset and everybody cheers at the sunset. It's a total mob scene. But if you go back 5 hours later, it's deserted, and there are just a few people sitting around, and it has a very, very, very different feel than it was at sunset when everybody is kind of partying. And so I went out late at night and took a number of pictures there, at least one of which is hanging in the next room, a cat sitting on cobblestone streets. And I saw these two just sitting talking on the edge of the dock, and it just kind of struck me as this kind of lonely but intimate scene in what would otherwise be a very, very crowded place. And that's why I took the picture, which they were not aware of. This is in Marrakesh, Morocco. And any place with a climate like Morocco is a very good example of a place where the whole universe changes at night. Many more people come out because it's so hot during the day. And this is the marketplace in Marrakesh. It is only open at night, and it's a total mob scene, and there's street performers and more pickpockets. One of the people we were with lost a camera that way. And there's all sorts of vendor tents. And it's a very lively, yeasty scene with all sorts of smells from all the cooking foods, and it's quite exciting and interesting, and so I tried to capture some of the hubbub in this picture. And this is closer to home. This is in the Inner Harbor in Baltimore. A friend of mine and I were walking around there one night, just trying to take some pictures, and this struck me as kind of a tentative, pensive sort of scene, right? You have the brightly colored paddle boats there, basically waiting till morning, and for me at least, this nighttime scene just lit by the city lights in the background and a single light on the dock in the foreground there just kind of had this sense of waiting till morning for me. So those are all examples of how, for me, a photographer can use the nighttime to evoke a feeling in the viewer, much the way a good travel photograph evokes a sense of place in the viewer. So, let's talk about the words that are on everybody's lips these days, because the question comes up quite a bit. Do I use AI in my work? Because more and more artists, and not just artists, but everybody is using it in one aspect of their lives or other. And AI lends itself very, very easily, perhaps arguably too easily, to photography. And so people ask me, do I use it? And if so, how do I use it? The answer is not much, but it does have its uses. I use a number of editing tools, and some of them have what you might call an AI assist that doesn't generate content, but helps you bring out detail and helps you enhance what you already have. And these are examples of two functions that I do use these AI-assisted tools with some regularity. One of them is sharpening, and I don't know how well you can see it, but that you can see a split screen of the Eiffel Tower on the left, right down the middle, and it's a lousy picture and I can't use it for much of anything, but it does illustrate the point, because if you look on the left side versus the right side, you know, the Eiffel Tower, of course, is all these crossed iron girders, and you can see pretty clearly that after running it through an AI filter, you can see more detail, a lot more detail, in the structure of the iron beams on the right than you can on the left. So it is occasionally the case that one can use AI sharpening extensively enough to rescue a picture that is otherwise just a little bit too blurry or out of focus. So I use it for that, to bring out detail if I think the picture can safely use it. The other thing that I use it for is noise reduction, which it is very good, because especially when you're taking pictures at night, the camera, without going into the physics of it, the camera sensor tends to produce more noise, and noise in this sense is like the equivalent of visual static. I mean, you've seen pictures that look noisy or grainy, and that is a constant hazard when shooting under certain conditions at night. And there are various editing tools, some of which use AI to help reduce that, and it does a very, very good job of it. I don't know how clearly you can see from where you're sitting, but I can show it to you later. This is a shot, again, from the Marrakesh night market. And if you look, you can see all this sort of staticky, grainy stuff all around the picture here, particularly on the side of the man's face. And the noise kind of obscures some of the details on his white shirt there. And after applying the AI, you can see that there's less noise over here. You can now see the contours of his face, you know, without all these little eruptions. And you can also see more detail in his shirt. So that is that's an example of how I would use AI if a scene I think has value but is a little bit too noisy compared to what I'm shooting for. There's a third example, and here's where things get a little bit trickier or more controversial, depending on your point of view. Distraction removal. This is a picture, it's kind of washed out looking on this screen, but you can see it in the other room. This is a picture of a street corner in Paris. It's in a neighborhood called Moncheguil, a very lively area. And I was out at night to take some pictures, and I saw this, and I thought, oh, I have to capture this. You know, it's a nice, lively cafe with all these people here, but it has some problems. And one of them will be a broken neck if I am not more careful. And so, the problems, oh, that didn't work. The problems are three. Over on the right there is a street light that looks like a UFO. Over on the left, there's some glow all through here that is resulting from some other street light that's outside the frame. And then worst of all, and this really bothered me, we have some green trash cans here, which I really, really did not want to have in the picture. And so the question then becomes, I like the picture, but I don't like these things. So what am I going to do about that? Well, the first thing to try and do when something you don't like is at the edge of the picture, is cut out the edge of the picture. And so I did that. I did it on both sides, and I'll show you in a moment. Cropping the picture to get rid of most of the glow here, and cropping it so that I just cut off this street light here. But what am I going to do about that? Because when I crop it, as you can see, right, I can get rid of the street light just barely, and I can get rid of almost all of the glow here. There's still a little bit here, but I still have the trash cans there. And that's where AI comes in to play a very useful and an arguably important role, because generative AI allows you to replace one thing with another. Now, it isn't an authentic picture if you replace things too dramatically, but I think I'm allowed to get rid of the trash cans. And so the instruction to the AI was very simple, which was it wasn't much more. It was a couple of sentences, and basically all it said was get rid of the trash cans and replace it with the cobblestone street and match the colors and so forth. And that worked very nicely. So after I do the cropping and I tell the AI to get rid of the trash can and I brighten it a little, that's the result. And that's hanging in the next room. So the whole thing about AI is, at least for me, is moderation. You use it in a limited way to do things like sharpening and noise reduction. Use it as minimally as humanly possible to remove distracting objects, and don't get carried away. The interesting thing about this is that it only took me 2 tries to make this. The first try I just said, have Godzilla destroying the building, and it did that, and I didn't like the results because the monster was dark in that particular version. So I tried again, and I said, have a well-lit Godzilla destroy the building. And it put in the helicopter and the police searchlights. I didn't tell it any of that. So that's just a little bit scary, but I seriously consider putting this one in the show instead of the one that's actually there. What was that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you do use these in a show, do you have to give AI any credit for what you use?
That's actually a very interesting. Did everybody hear the question? The question is, when I hang AI-assisted images in the show, do I credit AI? I don't, because I use it so little. I mean, I'm not going to credit AI for removing a trash can. But there have been some controversies in various art shows in which, in fact, there was one in which a guy entered a fully AI-generated image, was transparent about that fact, said that it was an AI-generated image, it won, and then there was this huge uproar. You know, understandably, right? Because the question is, where is the creativity? It's a very controversial topic, and it actually has echoes that go back about 150 years, because when photography was first introduced, you know, the question immediately arose, you know, is photography art? Can you use photography to make art? And of course, the people who were painting and working hard and carving statues and things, they all said no, right? But it has evolved over the years, and now AI is kind of on a similar track. So the bottom line here is that I do not use AI for object generation. The irony in this particular case is that I used AI to generate this slide. The rule that I follow is to use it, as I said, strictly as a refinement tool to focus the aesthetic, to refine the aesthetic without compromising the major structural elements or the composition or the overall authenticity of the image. And to me, at least, I think that's ethical. And so I do not credit AI in my work because it's my work. So that's pretty much it. So thanks for listening. By all means, go take a look. And the gallery has afforded me this opportunity for shameless self-promotion. There is my website. I've got business cards sitting in a little holder in the gallery there with the website on it. And I have another show coming up in April, which will be cityscapes, skylines and architecture and that kind of thing, which will be in Laurel. If you're interested in being notified about that, then just sign the guest book with your contact information. And if I already know you, don't do that because you're already on my list. That is pretty much it. Hey, any other questions? Do we have time for questions? Do we want questions? Does anybody care? Okay. Yeah, please.
Cat picture that you have hanging.
Yeah, nightcap.
Did the colors, the orange and the colors play around with that?
Yeah, but not much. That plaza is lit by sodium vapor lamps that have this sort of natural yellowish orange sheen to them. And so when I took the original picture, as it appeared in the camera, it looked kind of yellowish and a little bit bilious. And so I shifted the hue to make it more appealing, to turn it more orange than yellow. But that's the only thing I did with that picture. I mean, it actually looked like that.
Hello, my name's Laurie Martinson, and I want to thank Adela Plain, Jillian, and Corey for inviting me here to speak. I haven't done this for a long time, and we were on vacation until Thursday, so I didn't have a lot of time to prepare, but I'll do the best I can. Joe, put down your phone. That's my husband. Put down the phone, put down the camera. I have a piece upstairs, and it's called The Howling Wolves. And it's a piece that I made from cut trading cards, which is something I started doing about 6 years ago. So I want to tell you just a little brief history about myself, and then I'm going to tell you about this new collection or body of work that I've developed. I've been an artist producing work for about 50 years. And I started out as a watercolor artist, self-taught. I'm a realist, watercolor realist. I took a couple community college courses and then just read books and kind of studied on my own. So over the past, I had a 35-year career as a nurse, did a lot of different, with a lot of different positions, and also raised a family. And all during the past 50 years, I've continued to do my artwork, paint, and as I said, I started out as a watercolor artist, then I did some acrylics, oils, and then a lot of collaging recently. So, let's see here. This is a piece from when I was starting out painting. I was a traveling, visiting nurse in Carroll County. And this is from the Otter Mill Dam in Westminster. And I did a lot of the countryside of Carroll County. As I was traveling, I'd take photos and come home and paint pictures. And I had a show at the Carroll County Art Association with this group or series of work. A more recent watercolor of mine was, this is probably the last watercolor I did before I started my collage series. But let me just tell you a little bit first. And I'm sorry I don't have the piece that's upstairs because I wanted to talk a little bit about that, and I thought it was going to be hanging in this gallery and I could just refer to it. So I'll tell you a little bit about it and then you can go up and take a look at it. It's a 36 by 24 inch piece, and it's made entirely from trading cards. And the story behind the trading cards is around the time of COVID, about 5 or 6 years ago, I was cleaning through things and wondering what I was going to do with my son's baseball and football card collection. We figured we had between 18 and 20,000 cards. And I asked my sons if they were interested in storing them at their homes, and they said no. So they said just sell them. And I brought them to, have them appraised and have a couple of different people look at them, and they said they really weren't worth anything because there wasn't anything really in mint condition. And during the period of time that they collected from 1985 to 95, the cards just aren't worth very much money because there were so many on the market. So I don't know what made me think of this, but a lot of things I just turn into art. Because I'm obsessed with my art, and you'll see how obsessive I am. This is one of the earlier pieces that I did, and when I started out making my collages, I had a lot of full sets of cards, so I was able to get a lot of patterns and pretty much pick the colors I want and get complete patterns from the pieces. And I guess what I was thinking early on in these designs that I did, I wanted to see how much curvature I could get with just straight pieces. The way I start these is I get a wood panel and I'll make a grid on it, usually half-inch grid. These pieces are 24-inch squares. So I make a half-inch grid on the board, and I cut the ends of cards or the middle of cards, and you can see there are stats on them and names on them to create a design. And a lot of times, sometimes I'll sketch out kind of if I have an image in my mind of what I want, but a lot of times they kind of develop as I'm working on them. So that was one of the early designs. This next piece, I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
So you're cutting the cards in the scripts?
I have a paper cutter, and I cut them in these. The cards are 2.5 by 3 inches, so I can cut off a lot of times I'll cut off the ends, the edges. Like these are the edges with the names. And sometimes these are just the stats on the back of the cards. Yeah. And this was just, I punched one with a hole
and then you're gluing those down.
and they're glued onto the board.
I knew that. I wanted them to know.
Each little piece is glued on separately.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Oh, my.
This next piece, like I said, I'm not sure. I think my idea behind this was I wanted somebody standing up on stage presenting themselves. And sometimes I'll put little hidden messages in my pictures. And this one, if you look real close, it says, okay. I don't know if it means I'm okay or you're okay, but it's okay. I think that might be what I called this. And again, this was earlier work, so I had a lot of matching sets. So I was able pretty much to pick out colors and do what I wanted with the cards.
I love the nose.
This is another one. I guess I was thinking about emojis at this time. I wanted to do something with emojis.
Laurie, do you have the titles for these?
The what?
The title?
I do, but I can't remember them. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. You know, I gave them a title, and then on my next presentation, I'm going to have it all perfect. Yeah.
Did you start from the edge working in, or did you start from the center working out when you designed this?
On this one, I probably started from the outside working in.
Uh-huh.
I think, yeah.
And this design evolved after that.
Yeah, I probably will move around. I mean, sometimes I start from the center. This one maybe I did, I have done, so I have over 40 of these now.
How many hours go into that?
This is a 2-foot square, and the larger ones could take me 3 weeks or 4 weeks, depending upon how much time I put into it each day. Pardon me? Just Mod Podge. They stick pretty well, and then I varnish them. And so I wish I was going to have, we actually brought a piece. I wanted you to actually see this piece and feel it, but we didn't bring it in. It's kind of nice. You can even rub your hands over them because they have a nice feel to them. They're varnished and, yeah. This is called Pool House. I do remember the name on this one. And I wanted to start incorporating some images. And I had a little dog and a butterfly. And again, a lot of this made me feel that like it was water in front and the ground and then the sky above the house. So each, these are pretty much, so these are now little 1/4 inches that I cut. And sometimes I get pretty small to fill in. These are tiny little 1/4 inch squares. I've gotten down to cutting in, if I have a little space, I'm so obsessive about it, I'll cut in like a 32nd of an inch and fill in that little space.
I have another question, I'm sorry. These feel like southwestern motifs or something. Is that part of what you were trying to do, or did that just happen?
I think that just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an earlier one, and actually in the faces, if you look, I wanted to find kind of a shape, like this kind of looks like a little mouth, and the eyes, and kind of like a nose there on these guys. And then, this is one of my more recent ones. This is called Modern Temptation. I do have an earlier one that's Adam and Eve. And I like the idea of the snake, but this one made me think about, and the other interesting thing about this one, how it differs from my earlier ones, is this is towards the end of using the rest of these cards. I'm down to like a couple boxes now, and so I don't have a full series. So I knew that when I made this picture, I was going to need to be making a lot of, like this was not all going to be the same color and the same pattern. It was just and I wanted to just kind of, instead of fighting that and stressing over not having what I wanted to work with whatever I have to make it work. So you can see the snake is coming down and then coming around, and she's holding a Starbucks coffee. Presentation. My piece upstairs, the Howling Wolves, if you see that one sometimes I do get a little political, and that was a statement, that was a collage I made 2 years ago. And I guess it was really expressing my frustrations with my own personal views with the political environment. So it's a mirror, in a way it's a mirror image. It's the same, but it's different. There's a mirror image, and if you stand back from it, you'll see a silhouette of a man, black silhouette of a man on one side, and on the other there's a white silhouette of a man. And they're mirror images, they're the same, but of course they're different. And one side says abuse of power, and the other one is the power of abuse. And in their heads, you'll see there's each a little howling wolf, because it doesn't matter which side you're on, you're always going to have that, either you're going to still feel that anger, one way or the other. And then you'll see also there's some little hidden images. I used in that one baseball and football cards, and also I had cards from the Marvel series. And so I have some faces in there and some words like carnage and war. So if you get a chance, you can go up and take a look at that one too. I have some business cards with me if you'd like one. I have a site on Instagram that I'm now working on applying to have a solo show. So I'm hoping sometime in the next 1 or 2 years I can get all 40, but by that time I'll probably have 50 or 60 of my collages up for everybody to see.
That was my question. Are the cards almost gone, or you still have a lot left to work with?
Oh, the initial amount of cards, that's about gone. I just have a couple. And so what I've started doing, I never thought I'd buy baseball cards again. But I've been buying, I had actually Eric, a friend, gave me a bunch of football cards today, which was very nice. Thank you again. And I did start purchasing some on eBay. And it's really interesting because now, once again, I'm so happy because I can do, it's not as much of a struggle for me to make things work because I can pick out cards, you know, like, and now they're so bright, the colors are different. These cards, because they were over 20 years old, a lot have been faded and they're not as bright and shiny as these new ones, so I'm really enjoying working with the new cards I have. And I want to end with reading. This is from Graham Greene, and he wrote a book, an autobiography called Ways of Escape, and it really touches home with me. And it says, "Sometimes I wonder how all those who do not write, compose, or paint can manage to escape the madness, the melancholia, the panic fear which is inherent to the human condition."
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name's Prescott Lassman. I go by Scott. I'd say these are two very hard acts to follow, but I'll do my best. You know, no one's ever really actually called me Prescott. I go by Scott, but when I started doing photography, I'm a black and white photographer. I don't know, 25, 30 years ago, I was actually practicing as a lawyer and went by Scott, and I wanted to keep some separation between my photography and my lawyering, and so I decided to use my full name, Prescott, for my photography. Sounds a little more artist-like anyway, and it's worked out. But if we talk later, you can call me Scott. I've got 3 photographs in the exhibition upstairs. I'll talk a little bit about those, and then I'll show you a few photographs from some of my other bodies of work. The 3 photographs I chose are from 3 different bodies of work. But they're all crowd photos, and I thought that was important for the theme of the show. You know, what does it mean to be an American at this time? And you know, the politics are so fractured, the country seems so fractured. I thought, you know, it was important to show people actually coming together. You could argue, I guess, I'll show you all 3 of them in a second, that you know, maybe these are all 3 different groups of people coming together, and there's not a lot of interaction between the groups. I would argue with some of that. I think is accurate. I would argue with, you know, others of it. This one is called Monster Truck Crowd. It was taken just down the road at the Montgomery County Agricultural Fair a couple of years ago. It's a little bit like a Where's Waldo. If you go upstairs and take a look at it, it's a big photograph, and you can really get lost in the faces. I would encourage you to go up and check it out and see if you can pick out as many people staring right at you or right at me as you can. This is from a series that I've been working on called American Fair. I'm a city person. I lived in Washington, D.C. I kind of grew up in the city and in the suburbs, but I'm totally fascinated when I found this Montgomery County Agricultural Fair, and this was actually the first time I ever went to a monster truck show. I was mesmerized by it, and just couldn't believe that there was this other kind of completely different world, I don't know, just 10, 15 miles away from where I lived. So this is one of the photographs from from that series. And I'll show you another one, a little quieter one later. This is called DC Eclipse Crowd. This was from the Great American Eclipse on the Mall just a year or so ago. I think it was in 2024. This one I would say really is just a variety of people coming together, probably from all different political spectrums. And that's one of the things I really love about it. This was purchased recently by the DC government. They've got a wonderful grant program called the DC Art Bank, where they purchase artwork from local artists and then make it available for display in government buildings. So this was purchased last year. It has not been selected yet, so I don't know where it's going to go, but hopefully it will find a good home. And this one clearly is more political and is a group of like-minded people coming together. This was taken at the second No Kings rally in DC last year in 2025. This is a group of folks who gathered across Memorial Bridge on the Virginia side and then marched across it and then met the larger body of the No Kings protest in downtown DC. I was struck as they were crossing the bridge by the planes flying past, and so I kind of peeled off, got a little bit of distance, and then took the photograph. I can't tell personally whether the plane is hopeful or ominous. I think you could read it either way. You know, maybe it's flying air cover or maybe it's dropping bombs. But I like the ambiguity of it. So those are the three photographs that I've got upstairs. Again, they're all fairly large. The square one is 20 by 20. The image size, the rectangular ones are 20 by 30. I've been printing big recently. I think big prints hit differently than smaller ones. So again, I would encourage you to go take a look at them. I'll show you a few other ones. So this is, this is a kind of a funny one. This is more, I think, I would call this more of a street photograph. I used to consider myself to be a street photographer, but I don't really anymore. I don't think that a lot of the photographs I take are street photography, and honestly, I'm not that crazy about a lot of the street photography these days. I think when it started, back when you had the smaller cameras come out 50, 100 years ago, the idea was, it was very free and kind of broke the rules, and you're not in the studio anymore. I fear that it's kind of ossified now. There are a lot of rules to it, and if you go online, you'll hear people arguing endlessly about, was this street photography? It wasn't taken in the streets, it wasn't taken in a city, and it just drives me crazy. So I consider myself to be more of I call it freestyle photography. I just take my camera out and I take pictures of what interests me. I don't really care too much about what the what the category is. But again, this was taken on out in Rehoboth Beach, and it's probably the most street photography photo that I've got here. This is from a series I did on the DC Metro. It's called Freehand. This was a day I was out, and photographers here know some days you just are out, can't get anything good. This was one of those days, and I was heading home. This is my subway stop. Got on the escalator to leave the subway station to walk home, and then this appeared in front of me. So every once in a while you get lucky, and you got to be ready for it. So this is from a series I call Subterranean. I had a solo show of this about 2 years ago. This is an Iceland photograph. This is called Reykjavíkur stream. It's a geothermal stream. It was probably 40 or 50 degrees that day. You got to walk through the mountains about 2 hours to get here, but if you are able to make it, the stream is it's like being in a hot tub. Really gorgeous. And this is from a series called Around the Ring, from a trip that my wife and I took to Iceland, driving around the Ring Road. This is another from the American Fair series, Sleeping Cowgirl. Again, a quieter photograph. I find that I really take a lot of photos of people, and typically I've shown you a couple of crowd photos, but I'm drawn to solitary individuals kind of in their environment. And so it's photos like these. You'll see there's another one. This is from Ireland, a trip we took to Ireland. I call this Black Cat Crossing, but I just love the dark foliage with the black cat walking on the path in front of this person. There's just something about this that I just love the feeling of it. This is from the series Resist. The photo with the plane that I showed you previously, which is upstairs. This is from the same series. It's a series on the protests that erupted in D.C. and in other cities back in 2025. This series, I had a solo show of this down in DuPont Circle in D.C. At the beginning of this year, in January and February. I've actually put together a little zine with photos from this series, and I've still got a few left, so if anybody's interested, let me know. I wish I had taken some with me here, but I haven't. As I said, I'm drawn to these photographs of people kind of in a wider environment. This was at Machu Picchu in Peru. I just love the sun kind of streaming through his garments. I call it a sun worshiper. This was early in the morning at Machu Picchu. And this is a photograph I took earlier this year at Joshua Tree National Park. I actually had an artist residency there in February, and I'm still working through a lot of the photographs. But this is one of my favorites. Love the guy climbing on the rock with the contrail behind him. That was one of the more interesting things I found in Joshua Tree. Is they've got the Marine base not too far, and so there were contrails constantly, which I'm not so sure it was so good for the environment, but it was great for photographs. And here's another example. So this is the last one I'll show. I say I usually like taking photos of people, but I do on occasion take more landscapey photographs. At least I try to. And this was one of the favorites that I got from my residency. So I'll leave you with that. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Yeah. Thank you.
Do you shoot with film or with digital?
Some of these were film. I used to shoot exclusively with film. In fact, the one from Iceland was a film, but now I've moved to digital. I'm kind of a late adopter to it, but I don't think I would ever go back, actually. To film, yeah. Digital is much easier and faster. Yeah. I mean, the spotting of the prints is horrendous with film. So if I clean my lens, I don't have to do much of that with digital.
Do you only use black and white?
For the most part, if you look at my website, I've got a few color photographs, but I find that I'm a little OCD. I kind of see in shapes and lines, and it's much more suited to black and white. I'm not typically a very good photographer in color, so I've mostly been sticking with black and white. Yeah.
Do you shoot all 35 millimeter, or some of this looks like large format?
There were one or two that were shot with a Hasselblad. That's a film, medium format film camera. The rest of it, I've got a Leica digital camera, which only shoots in black and white. It's an odd camera. I mean, most digital cameras will shoot color. This is specifically for black and white and only shoots black and white. And I really like it. It shoots really well in low light, and that's where I tried it out originally with my subway photos and was very happy with those. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you use any AI in your editing?
That's a good question. I don't think so, but I don't know. I use Lightroom, and recently when I was trying to export some photos, it said I had used AI, and what I had done was I had found a couple of little spots, and I took them out, and it said the spotting was AI for some reason. I don't know why, but I try not to. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you so much for coming, and again, I've got cards if anybody wants them.